Hi, it's Mr. Schneider. This is podcast 5.1, the United States government at the national level. All right, so there's three branches. Hopefully you know the three branches: legislative, executive, and judicial. Let's talk about the legislative branch first. They, of course, meet in the Capitol building in Washington, D.C. It's a bicameral legislation, bi meaning two, cameral meaning houses. There's a House of Representatives, which there's 435 members, and that's based on state populations. And there is the Senate. Each state has two representatives in the Senate. Members of the House serve 2-year terms. So every 2 years we replace all 435. And members of the Senate serve 6-year terms. And every 2 years we replace roughly a third of the Senate. Some of their jobs, they make the laws for the nations, they approve the annual budget, the president writes the budget, they approve it. They confirm presidential appointments. So a president gets to pick, the main appointments we talk about are the cabinet members and members of the Supreme Court. And right now, the Senate is going through the process, this is the Senate's job, of confirming, confirming. Sorry about that. A little bit of a choking fit there. The Senate's going through the job of confirming President-elect Trump's cabinet members. Today, which is January 10th, Jeff Sessions was going through the process of his confirmation hearing for Attorney General. And in the next few days, I believe there's 6 cabinet appointments scheduled for confirmation within the next week. They raise taxes. Anything dealing with money has to start with in the House of Representatives. They regulate trade, and they also declare war. And let's look at a little snapshot inside one of the chambers of the legislative branch.
I know a lot of you are already on my side. And for you naysayers, I have 2 strong words for you. Come on. Come on. Oh, okay. Oh, okay, sure. All right. Put on.
All right. So yeah, that's a lot of debate goes on in the House and the Senate, and sometimes you really need those strong words to get especially senators from the other side of the aisle, whether they're Democrats and you're Republicans or the other way around, to agree with your legislation. All right. So the next branch is the executive branch. The executive branch, of course, is headed by the president. There we go. He's the chief executive officer of the nation. So think of him as in charge of the entire nation. So the president executes the laws of the land, makes sure those laws are being followed. He prepares the annual budget. He appoints cabinet officers, foreign ambassadors, federal judges. And he oversees executive agencies and departments, the federal bureaucracy. They're all under the privy of the president. There's a lot of other things the president does that we'll talk about more in depth in a future podcast. We call them the president's duties or the president's hats. But for right now, that's all you really need to know about the different things that the president does.
1600. Sweet. Excellent question. Yes, I am proud to be America's first straight female president. Helen?
Wasn't I wearing a hat?
Yes, you were. Now, in conclusion, my administration will focus on the 3 R's. Reading, writing, and refilling the ocean. Thank you very much. As you know, we've inherited quite a budget crunch from President Trump. How bad is it, Secretary Van Houten?
We're broke.
The country is broke? How can that be?
Well, remember when the last administration decided to invest in our nation's children? Big mistake.
The Balanced Breakfast program just created a generation of ultra-strong super criminals.
And midnight basketball taught them to function without sleep.
What about my pledge to build the world's largest bookmobile? Isn't there any money left for that?
No, and we borrowed from every country in the world.
Quick, Lisa, call out your mom.
Bart! Ow! Watch the ponytail.
All right, so just a little insight on what the president actually does. All right. And let's present this. Okay. And then finally, we have the judicial branch, the Supreme Court, the highest court in the land. Supreme Court looks at judicial review, so they review laws and acts of Congress, and they make sure the main thing they do is they look at cases that deal with the Constitution. Some of these cases you learned about last year, some of them are really good, like Brown versus the Board of Education. Some of them are really bad, like Plessy v. Ferguson. So the Supreme Court, the only way that a Supreme Court case can be overturned is if the Supreme Court agrees to hear the case again or hear a different case that overturns a previous Supreme Court case. So it's not very often that it happens. So let's look a little bit about what goes into selecting a Supreme Court justice.
I don't know about this.
Hey, we all did it. If you want to be a Supreme Court justice, you got to pick up that cherry with your butt cheeks and drop it in that beer.
Come on, do it. Go, Suter. Go, Suter. Go, Suter. Oh, my God. I can't believe it. I can't believe he did that. This guy is so in.
All right, so just a little insight to the Supreme Court there. All right, so again, this is just a little, what's what I'm looking for? We're looking at very basics of our country. Again, you've all learned about the three branches, and as we go on, the podcast will look more in depth at what exactly the three branches do. All right, thanks, guys. Have a good day.